The Israeli military has ordered the evacuation of 3 hospitals in northern Gaza, including the only fully functioning medical facility in the region. Palestinian healthcare workers say there is no safe way for patients to leave and nowhere to go. Well, Doctors Without Borders says parts of northern Gaza are turning into a, quote, unlivable wasteland as a result of the war. And now Israel's Prime Minister is warning Lebanon could become another Gaza. And I quote him here: in a direct statement to the Lebanese people on Tuesday, Benjamin Netanyahu urged them to stand up to Hezbollah and take back their country before it, quote, falls into the abyss of a long war. Well, as the conflict intensifies, the UN says 250,000 refugees have fled Lebanon for neighbouring Syria. Our next guest has just returned from a 3-day trip to both countries, meeting with those displaced by this bombardment. The UN High Commissioner for Refugees says families he spoke with there had run for their lives and have no idea what tomorrow may bring. And Filippo Grandi joins us now live. It's good to have you. It's always good to have you. Thank you for coming to us immediately off the back of this trip. Tell us what you saw and what people are going through. What did they tell you?
Of course, you have a massive, really massive situation of displacement inside Lebanon. The Prime Minister speaks of 1.2 million. You know, that's a small country. That means that a fourth of the country is displaced, mostly from the zones, from the areas that are impacted by the Israeli airstrikes. And then, like you said, about 250,000, probably more by now, people, both Lebanese and Syrian refugees who used to be in Lebanon, crossing the border into Syria to seek refuge there. So people, many of them are people that fled Syria because of the war in Syria and now are fleeing back from Lebanon to flee the war in Lebanon. That's the paradox. That's the terrible, sad, tragic irony of this situation.
Did you see this coming?
Of course, we have been worried about an expansion of the conflict beyond Gaza for a long time. And we've said many times, we, the humanitarians, have said many times, you know, we're stretched to capacity all around the world, including in the Middle East. We won't be able to respond to many more crises. And then it's happened. And what you quote, you know, the quote you made of the Israeli Prime Minister saying this could be a long war worries us a lot, because Lebanon is already on its knees because of its economic, social, political situation. It's a country that is really at the end of what it can take from the human point of view, and it's very, very worrying that this war may last longer.
And the UN has confirmed this week that airstrikes and ground incursions by the IDF targeted multiple areas across what is known as the Blue Line. Israeli officials today talking about occupying a village or town in southern Lebanon. This is pretty ominous stuff at this point. Where do you see this going?
You see, this generates two problems. One is that there will be more displacement. There's 1,000 schools in Lebanon, 1,000 schools that are already full of displaced people. Basically, the school year has ground to a halt because of this. But just to give you a sense of the size of what's happening. Mm-hmm. And then in those areas that are more heavily bombarded, like southern Lebanon that you mentioned, but also the southern suburbs of Beirut, the Bekaa Valley at the border with Syria. It's in the areas that are under heavy bombardment, we cannot go and bring help to the people that cannot even flee. So you have also that aspect of the crisis, people trapped, a bit like in Gaza, in areas where even humanitarian relief cannot reach.
You've been in the UN system for decades. You and I have talked about your frustration over the years that things seem to get worse, not better, despite the good work that agencies like yours put in. Things are spiralling at this point. Realistically, what can be done to stop this current crisis when Israel has the unconditional support of the most powerful country in the world behind it?
Becky, we've discussed this many times, and unfortunately, I have always the same answer, which is you don't stop war with a divided political spectrum. You know what I mean? Security Council can hardly agree on resolutions on humanitarian assistance. Imagine doing its job, which is to stop conflict. They're unable to do it by now. So if we don't have that backing of political instances, we, the humanitarians, are thrown in time after time trying to fix the pieces. And never mind, we'll do our job. We'll stretch our capacity. We will continue to ask for funding, and that's become also very difficult because there's so many crises. But what is really tragic and painful is that more and more people are affected. What I saw even in these last few days, sorry to be a bit emotional about this, but what I saw in Lebanon, what I saw, those people, old people, women with children, carrying their heavy luggage across the border from Lebanon into another very fragile country, Syria, because even the road between the two countries has been bombed out by an Israeli airstrike. So they can't even flee easily because that's made difficult. You know, what do you say about that?
Well, the UN Secretary General has said, and I quote him here just hours ago, we will not give up on calls for an immediate ceasefire in Gaza or in Lebanon, he says. But frankly, I mean, these calls are landing on deaf ears, not least the ears, it seems, at this point, of the United States. You spoke, as I understand it, to the Lebanese Prime Minister, who's the leader of the Lebanese caretaker government, of course. There is, you know, the international community stepping up. We know that, but by no means is this enough. And there is no political stability, it seems, in Lebanon to cope at the moment. What did he tell you? What was his appeal to you? What did you discuss with him?
Well, you understand, Becky, most of the conversation was how do we organize the response, because at the moment, you know, people need shelter, need water, need food, need everything. So a lot of the conversation with Prime Minister Mikati, with his government, was about that. They're trying their best, frankly, to organize themselves, but it's very difficult. And by the way, we do need those resources. We issued an appeal in Lebanon, we issued another appeal in Syria, and we desperately need from all donors, including Gulf donors, we need more resources. But what Prime Minister Mikati and others are saying is also very important. Ceasefires first, we all agree. But then you need those political processes that allow the ceasefires to be durable. Because otherwise, the ceasefire lasts for some time and then they break down again. So in Lebanon, for example, there is a Security Council resolution, it's called 1701, that stipulates or indicates a system to oversee the situation at the border. That has to be also put in place. That's what my political colleagues in the UN are negotiating. That's not my job, but it's very important that ceasefire is followed by a political agreement. In Gaza, it's even more complicated because that political agreement can only be the two-state solution that seems to be so far away now. But without those political agreements, ceasefires will last less and less in a region like the Middle East.